I feared missing out and made the stupid mistake to sleep with this guy. Now I'm divorced.
My marriage with my husband just ended because I slept with another man as a result of my shameful curiosities. I might probably get tagged with so many things for saying that my marriage ended because I got too curious and unsatisfied with my husband and decided to cheat on him just so I could satisfy my curiosity. I didn't think I'd ever be the one to cheat in my marriage, but the temptation was just too irresistible, and I ended up making a stupid mistake because I wanted to see what it was like to sleep with a guy the size of my affair partner. I couldn't help it, and I ended up ruining my marriage as a result of my actions. My name is Tamika, and I'm a 29-year-old housewife. I don't really think I'm just a housewife, even though I don't have a stable job. I do everything from small businesses to side jobs, but none of them lasts for a long period of time. I'm just someone that doesn't like sticking to a particular routine. But I make my own money, even though it's not as big as my husband's. I've been married for 2 years to my husband, Rain. Rain is a radiologist, and he's a very intelligent person. He's also quite hardworking, and it all pays off for him. But Rain is literally 10 years older than me. He's 39 years old. I know you might be wondering how that has anything to do with my cheating, but it does. Rain has a muscular body, and that's one of the things that got me attracted to him. I liked the way he was built, but I soon got disappointed when we started dating. I learned that the size of a man's tool cannot be determined by his muscles. Rain isn't as big as I thought down there, and our intimate life isn't that great either. He does his best, but he's always tired as a result of work and barely has time to give me what I want. That's how I ended up falling into this predicament. I knew Rain didn't satisfy me as much as I wanted from the beginning, but I still got married to him because he checked all the other boxes. I thought he would get better, but he never did. I managed it like that and never complained or tried to look elsewhere until recently. I got very curious when I saw the huge tool Axel had, and that's when the FOMO kicked in. Guys, Axel is my affair partner. I think I should speak in past tense now since we're not really together anymore. He's the one I cheated on my husband with. I think it's safe to say that he's the one that made me so curious that I couldn't hold it. I just had to know what it was like to sleep with a man like him. Before I get into the details of everything that happened, let me tell you all how I met Axel. So, like I said earlier, I'm not really someone who is into one particular business. I do a lot of things, and 90% of the time, I hardly like to stay in one business for a long time. One of my friends, Rachel, is also like me, so she became the perfect business partner. Just recently, we started an online clothing store for males. I know how weird that sounds, but trust me, this isn't the first weird business I've ventured in. I'm always trying trendy things and things that bring more money at a particular time. We already tried selling unisex clothes online and even female clothes, but we discovered that the female clothing market was already very competitive. Almost every clothing store has 90% of female clothes. We also noticed that girls pay less for a lot of things and like to bargain unlike men. So I decided to start selling clothes for men because they just order stuff without caring about how expensive it is. Rain is like that. He just orders stuff and I only get to know that they ripped him off after it arrives. So yeah, that's how I wanted my business to be like. We started the clothing line for men even though it was just an experiment, and surprisingly, it became something very lucrative. The money I got out of it exceeded my expectations, and I actually realized it could finally be the business I stick to. I needed money to buy a space to have an official store and equipment. Rain gave me the money without any complaints because I don't usually ask for money unless I want to invest it. With his help, I started up my store with Rachel, and it got crazy, guys. Business was booming and I was having a great time, literally. The sales were up and we had an influx of customers. Most of the guys preferred coming to try on the clothes themselves so they could get their sizes right. Rain told me it was because men usually had a problem finding the right clothes that fit their arms and stuff. I had extra space for a changing room, so I set that up too. At first, Rain was super supportive of the business and he usually patronized me. But I don't know what suddenly got into him or why he just felt like a woman shouldn't sell male clothes. I refused to listen to him eventually, though it started causing problems in our marriage. But now, I wish I listened to him because it was thanks to this clothing business that I actually got to meet Axel. He was one of my customers and he regularly bought shoes and ties from our website online. We mainly conducted our transactions through Instagram and he never had to visit my store personally. But one day he told me he wanted to come personally because he needed some clothes and wasn't ready to take the risks of buying stuff that didn't fit. It was easy for that to happen because we both stay in Canada. I was really surprised to see him when he came to the shop. It's not like he looked different from his Instagram or anything, it's just that he was more attractive. I asked him what he came to get, and he said he wanted to get some singlets, boxers, polo shirts, and tuxedos. I had expanded the shop thanks to Rachel's husband and his fashion ideas, so we had all the things he asked for. We even sold suits at the store. Long story short, he entered the dressing room to change into his boxers, and that's when my FOMO kicked in. Yes, guys, my FOMO kicked in when I saw his huge size. I'm not even exaggerating, he's actually very big. He tried on the boxer and singlet and came out to look at the mirror. That's when I spotted how huge his tool was. I was shocked to say the least because I never expected that kind of size from him. In fact, I didn't expect that kind of size from anyone. I've never seen anyone shaped like that before, and I can truly say he has good genetics. It was a big step up from what I usually saw with Rain, so I got very curious. He tried on a lot of boxers, and I just couldn't stop staring. I know I sound like the biggest loser in the world right now, but trust me, this is just me being honest. I might not be proud of how cheaply I behaved, but I had no choice realistically speaking. If I didn't give in to the temptation, then I'm sure I would have eventually given in. Even my friend Rachel kept on pulling me to the side to tell me just how big he was. We tried to behave ourselves until he bought what he needed and left. Rachel tried to bring up the topic after he left and tell me just how big he was, but I had to stop her because I didn't trust myself and what I would have ended up saying. I wanted to pretend like I wasn't interested even though I couldn't get my mind off him all day. I knew I was really in trouble when I got home and refused to sleep with my husband that night. It just felt like I was missing out on something when I kept comparing Axel's size with that of my husband. I'd never been with anyone his size, and I'd been having a lot of unsatisfied moments with Rain, so I just kept thinking about Axel. The FOMO really kicked in because it was the most annoying moment of my life. Many people in the comment section are surely going to come for me and try to make me look immoral, but I know I deserve it. I'm a married woman, or rather, I was a married woman, and I shouldn't have had those feelings about someone that was not my husband, but I honestly got too curious. I felt like I just had to try it because I'd been missing out on something important all my life. One day, I just couldn't take it, and I decided to message Axel. He replied to my message some hours later, and that's how we started chatting casually. I brought up random things like how there were new stocks of clothes and how we were having promo sales. I just did anything to initiate a conversation, and it worked. We started flirting, and soon enough, he was already asking for my address. I didn't give him my address and asked him for his instead. He told me his address, and I went there the very next day. I just couldn't wait, even though I tried to hold it. I wanted to know how it felt, so I had to go. When I got there, I discovered that Axel is actually really a flirt. I told him I was married just so he would know ahead of time so there wouldn't be any regrets later. But he told me he didn't care. Now that I think about it, I regret just giving in like that. But I feel like a hypocrite because that's not the same energy I had at that moment. At that moment, I thought everything he said was just too good, and I felt like he was the perfect man. I ended up sleeping with him not once, but 3 times that day. I actually slept at his house before going home the next day. I'm stupid. Trust me, I know that already. When I got home that day, Rain and I had a very long argument. It was almost like he knew that I might have cheated on him and wanted to confront me. But it was mainly because I'd never slept outside of the house since we got married, and it was very unusual. He said a lot of things and even implied that I had to close down the store because it was making me do things I'd never done before. When I spent the night at Axel's place, I knew Rain was eventually going to get angry, but I never expected him to be as angry as he was that day. He told me he'd been getting suspicious of my movements and wanted to know why I was being so secretive. Of course, I had to lie my way out of it because I was just too afraid of letting the truth out. I mean, how was I supposed to tell my husband I cheated on him? I knew Rain would never just let it go, and I knew that we would end up losing our marriage as a result of my desires. I also felt like losing him would be a big loss for me, because he was basically the only stable thing I had in my life. I didn't want to lose him. That's why I carried on with the poor, intimate life for the 2 years our marriage lasted. I was just too scared to say otherwise or try to be with someone else. A part of me kept feeling like I had no choice than to stick to the man I married, even though things didn't end up going on as planned. That's why I decided to hide the fact that I cheated on him. Call me a coward for hiding it, but I just felt like it was the best thing I could do. The reason it was so easy for me to hide it is because I thought I'd never end up seeing Axel again. I thought our relationship was over and there'll be no reason for us to meet up. I went about my daily life like nothing happened and just carried on. I didn't even tell Rachel about it because I didn't trust her that much. Even though we were business partners, I couldn't imagine telling her I cheated on my husband. I couldn't even imagine telling anyone what I did because I was just too scared of the outcome. But hiding the truth was not the best decision because things came back to stab me in the back. I've learned that deceit is never the solution and there's nothing one can do to stop the truth from coming out. Lowell, you might try to hide it and succeed, but it's only going to take time before it gets out. The truth started finding its way out from my intimate life with my husband. I mean, of course, things are not expected to go back to normal after I cheated on him. There are going to be signs, and he's going to know that I cheated. It started from my nonchalant attitude towards our nights together. I just didn't feel like sleeping with him anymore. Before I met Rain, I only dated 2 men all my life. The first one was in high school and we never got intimate. The second one was a 4-year relationship in college. That's just to say that I never experienced my B before getting married to Rain. So, after being with Axel and just experiencing what it was like to be with a man like him, I hated my relationship with Rain more. I just hated getting intimate with him because I felt like it was trash and it wasn't as good as I wanted. Rain tried to be patient with me at first, but he later got very angry and impatient. He kept asking me why I was being reluctant to get intimate with him, and I just kept coming up with excuses like being sick if getting tired. In the nights when I eventually decided to get intimate with him, he could tell that I was holding something back. My reluctant attitude went on for months before the truth finally came out. It was actually long overdue if you ask me. Rain is very attentive and he started keeping an eye on me from that moment on. I knew he was trying to follow me around, but I played along and acted like I was oblivious to the things he was doing. The main reason why I acted that way is because I just didn't want him to get more suspicious. One day, something crazy happened and I got a call from Axel. I was really shocked to get a call from him considering the fact that we agreed that it would just be a one-time thing. Guys, please don't come at me. I already know how foolish and stupid I am. You really don't need to rub it into my face. I made mistakes I'm not proud of and I shouldn't have done what I did. But at that moment, all sense of reasoning was gone and I thought I was doing nothing wrong. I thought satisfying myself was natural and there was no need to feel bad about it. I should have thought about Rain and how unfair I was to him. He had been the one to cheat. I know it would have hurt me a lot. So after Axel called me, he asked us to meet up on a date. It was a weird message because I knew he was never one to take things slow for any reason. But I decided to just listen to him and go on a date with him. He told me he liked me while we were on the date. Yes, he told me he liked me. I was shocked and I found his sudden confession very weird because, like I said, he already knew I was married. I couldn't understand why he would tell a married woman he liked her. What did he expect at the end of the day? That I would get into a full-time relationship with him? I was already having serious problems in my marriage with my husband, so I didn't want a situation where things got complicated. That's why I told him to hold on for a bit so I could think about what he said. He kept calling me after that day and trying to check up on me. For me, I knew there was no possibility of me actually liking him or falling in love with him. I just liked what he offered and the fact that he was quite good in bed. That's why I decided to give in at the end of the day. I tried to resist, but the FOMO kicked in again, and I just wanted to see what it was like one more time. It's messed up, I know, but my common sense is only coming back now. Back then, I actually thought I was doing the best thing I could do for myself. I ended up meeting up with Axel one last time, and I spent the night with him again. After that day, I made it clear to him that I could not meet him again, because my husband was getting suspicious, and I couldn't afford to keep making him find red flags. Axel agreed and said he understood where I was coming from, and that it was for the best. He promised never to contact me again, and also told me he was even planning to leave Canada because he got transferred at work. I deleted his number, then left his house that day. I went home straight because I thought Rain would be at work and would not be at home. But that was just me deceiving myself and being in the dark, because when I got home, Rain was already there waiting for me. Since I got married to him, he's never missed work without a valuable reason, and he always tries his best to keep a steady workflow. so I was really surprised to see him at home that day. I know you guys are wondering why it bothered me that he was at home. Well, the fact that I spent the night outside and didn't come home scared me. We already had issues because of that before, so I just knew that there was going to be drama. I was also 100% sure that the only reason Rain didn't go to work was because he wanted to wait for me and confront me about staying late again. My assumptions were not wrong because that is exactly what happened. He didn't even let me settle down when I came back. He started saying all sorts of hurtful words, and he went as far as telling me that he knew I was cheating on him. I was very surprised that he said that to me because I didn't expect that he would even suspect I was cheating on him. I knew that he was having suspicions about the way I was acting at night, but I didn't think he would connect it to my infidelity. It was a very heated argument, and even though I tried my best not to say anything that would implicate that I cheated, all my efforts were in vain. It was initially all about the fact that he kept poking me to say something. He asked me why I stayed up late again and why I did not come home. He also asked me where I slept when I didn't come home for the second time. All those questions really caught me off guard because they were not questions that I was expecting. I didn't think that he would be at home, so I did not prepare ahead of time to tell him the things I needed to tell him. While we were arguing, he told me I needed to stop acting like I was the hottest woman on earth by denying him intimacy at night. He tried to diminish my confidence, so I got angry and told him I was cheating on him with someone that was far better than him. I told him he was the one who wasn't the hottest person. He never satisfied me, so I had to look for someone who did. It was after I said those words that I realized that he had just been trying to get the truth out of me and was not sure that I cheated on me. He just wanted me to say the words myself so that he would know the truth, and I fell for it. That's how my marriage ended, guys. Rain was so angry that he almost laid his hands on me. I really respect the level of self-control he had and how he held back himself. I shouldn't have robbed it in his face, but my anger made me do it. He sent me out of the house that very day, and 2 weeks later I was served with divorce papers. He didn't try to consult me personally, and I haven't heard from him since then. I signed the divorce papers, and now I am waiting for our court hearing so our divorce can be finalized. My stupidity and unnecessary curiosity has now ended my 2 years of marriage. Update. Hi guys, I'm here to update you all on everything that happened since the last update. So the divorce eventually got finalized about 2 months later. Before we finally got divorced, Rain made sure he collected the money he gave me to invest in the store. Thankfully, I was able to give him the money as a result of the profits I made from the store. He only contacted me through his lawyer and never had any physical conversation with me. The last time I spoke to Rain was when I told him I cheated on him. The guilt has been eating me up and I regret everything. But I guess there's nothing I can do at the end of the day. I let my needs and desires lead me to do something I eventually regretted with passion. One thing about life is that you only truly appreciate what you have after it's gone. Few months ago, I didn't think that I would really miss my ex-husband like I do now. Back then, I just felt like I needed to cheat on him, and that would be the best thing to do. I didn't realize that I would end up regretting it with so much passion at the end of the day. But now I actually do realize that I should have never married Rain if I felt like he didn't satisfy me like I wanted. It was unfair to him, and it was also unfair to me.
You know, I have only seen or heard about cheating ex-wives who later tried to come back in the name of fixing things and in the name of love on TV. I had thought those who allowed their cheating ex-wives back into their lives were fools or naive, not knowing that one day I'll be facing the same thing those men are facing out there. Mine was worse because she tried coming back with a baby that was not mine. The audacity. Women are evil and very manipulative species. They use the fact that you love them even after the breakup, you still loved them, and use that to their favor. I still can't believe that I once found myself in the same situation. I almost got trapped with a child that was not mine. If I didn't get a wake-up call and took matters into my own hands, I would have been a father to another man's child. If there is someone who once found himself in the same situation as mine, how did you deal with this kind of face a day? Let me tell you about my ordeal. So I, M44, married this humble, down-to-earth, and loving wife. Her name was Faith, F34. I loved her so much, there was nothing I didn't and wouldn't do for her, but she took all that for granted. Faith and I first met at the year-end party at work that was hosted by my boss 6 years ago. Her beauty caught my heart. Her humbleness and how she carried herself made me love her. When I first saw her, she was with some of my female colleagues. I didn't know how she knew my colleagues, but I later found out that she was the supervisor's little sister. I was working at an insurance company, name withheld due to personal reasons, in Richards Bay as a financial advisor. Let me first tell you a bit more about myself so it would be easy to understand my story. I was born and raised in the village of Richards Bay in KwaZulu-Natal. I am the person who they call a farm Julia in the suburbs or in the city. I was raised in a big family by very strict parents when it comes to our culture. My father used to say that if one of his children reached the age of 30 and they have not found a wife for himself who will bear him grandchildren and grow our household, he would personally look or arrange a marriage for that son, because it would have shown that the son was either a coward or gay. So I was under a lot of pressure because I was the third born in my father's male children out of 5 and 4 girls. I don't know and don't understand who came with the rule that stated all the men who live in villages must have many children or have 2 wives to grow the family's surname. My 2 older brothers were married around the village. It was easy for them because they got married to their childhood girlfriends. And I, on the other hand, sighed. I didn't know if I was the problem or I had a problem because I was not a person who was interested in courting ladies. The only thing I was obsessed about were my books, so my brothers would sometimes call me gay, because even if I came across a very beautiful lady in our village, I wouldn't have the courage to approach her. I was scared of rejection and thought that I was not their type of man they wanted because I was a bookworm. So one day my father came home and called a meeting with his sons. I thought it was something serious that concerned a family or his health. Mind you, at the time I was in the middle of my exams, I took a distance learning course at UNISA, University of South Africa. I did accounting and business management, which was a course I chose because I loved accounting and managing businesses. It was a 3-year course, and I was on my second, going to a 3rd year in a few months. Okay, so father called us to a big house. We call it a family house. We made sure to always leave everything, no matter how busy we were, and comply with father's summons. We had to respect his requests. So when we had all gathered, father started telling us about the issues we were facing at home. What surprised me was that I was also in the issues. When I had just reached 30 years, my father announced that he had found me a wife. He found me a wife while I was in the middle of my exams. That made me mad because it somehow showed that my father didn't care about my goals and education. Instead, he wanted me to find a wife that I would impregnate so she can bear him grandchildren. I didn't argue with him after his announcement because I knew that if I did, I would be in hot waters. You know, when parents think they know everything and know what's best for everyone is what my father was doing. He also announced that I would have to meet the girl before he takes the next step. I didn't agree with him because I was in the middle of my exams, so I didn't need any destruction. But he threatened to disown me if I went against his word, so I had no choice but to obey. He was the head of the family after all. I missed my mother so much because she was able to soften her husband's hard heart. Our mother passed away when I had just turned 25. It was the hardest time of our lives. I had thought my parents were soulmates and no one would get in between them, but life and the universe had other plans. Well, more like my extended family elders had other plans for their relationship. So as most people know that in most villages, especially African villages, they perform witchcraft and all those weird things. You survive if you have a very strong ancestor and believe in them along with God. It's more like survival of the fittest. So the extended family elders once called my father and told him that he needed a second wife because one woman wouldn't be able to handle a big household all alone, so she needed a helper. Time went by and the second wife came and she was introduced to us. She had only one child who passed away when he turned 15. The reason for the course of his passing was not clear, but when they went to a traditional healer, the healer told them that the child had passed on because of his mother's sins. The second wife started accusing our mother of witchcraft, saying she had killed her child. The accusation and jealousy went on until my mother started getting sick. She didn't know what was going on with her because she had suddenly got sick. The sickness kept getting worse, so my brothers and I went to the healer again and tried to get help for our mother. We were told that my father had allowed a snake into our home, so since she lost a child because of her doings, instead of repenting, she got bitter and she was on a mission to destroy or kill everything that had any relation with our mother. 3 months later, our mother passed on in her sleep. It was not believable because she had started looking better, but she was fooling us. Her passing made father blame himself for our mother's passing. He became cold-hearted and more strict after the second wife got arrested. My elder brothers didn't believe that our mother had just died in her sleep, so they went to the mortuary authorities and requested for a post-mortem to find her actual course of death. When the results came back, we found out that she was poisoned. So my brothers came back with police officers and the wife was arrested. I have never been so infuriated like that in my life. I was angry and wanted the second wife's blood. Jail was going to be too soft for her. She deserved a serious punishment. A few days later, my father organized a meeting with this girl. Actually, he came home with this girl, the one he said he had found for me. He introduced her as Nozipo, meaning gift. The girl was beautiful, I won't lie, but she looked too young and too forward for me. I didn't want to disappoint my father or get on his bad side, so I went with the flow. The girl and I started talking, spending time together as my father had suggested. I told the girl that whatever that was happening between us, she shouldn't be comfortable because I was doing this for my father to get off my back. Me agreeing to the nonsense didn't mean I loved her and would ever love her. Forward and stupid girls who had no ambition and goals were not the type of girls I would want in my life. So Nocifo, gift, was not the cup of tea I would drink if it was up to me. But we have to respect our elders' orders and requests, right? We hung out a couple of times. She would sometimes see that I was not interested in whatever she was saying. She bored me to the core. We developed a pretend relationship because the way my father wanted grandchildren, it's like he was dying, so he didn't want to die before seeing all his children's kids. Nocifo and I slept together for obvious reasons. So during our planned relationship, she kept complaining that I was a boring boyfriend. I was too serious for her. How would you be a fun boyfriend to someone you didn't even love? She told me that she liked guys who buy at least a slab of chocolate just to make a girl happy, or take her out even if it's going to KFC, and that she wanted to feel special like those girls who live in the city. I didn't understand why she was telling me this. Besides, she was from the rural areas, so I wondered how she knew such things. I then figured that it may be social media influence. So, as we were trying for a child his father wanted, nothing was happening. I then went to a doctor to check what was going on because a lot was happening to me. 1. The girl had to work so hard for my shaft to wake up. 2. If I wanted to get intimate with her, I first had to watch XX videos. And lastly, our intimate session did not last even 10 minutes. It was boring. So I tried to bribe her to break up with me and go back home, but she told my father and the old man was not impressed. Weeks after I had gone to the doctor, I heard rumors that the girl was pregnant, and people from the village believed that the child was mine because she had been seen with me a lot. I ignored all the rumors, and my father took it upon himself to go and pay damages to the girl's family, since I had slept with her and made her pregnant. Months later, the child was born. She had moved to our home because father had paid dowry for her. When the child turned 3 months old, he started getting sick. So in our culture, if a child gets sick randomly, it's issues related to ancestors. When the child is sick, an elder or the head of the family has to burn an incense to speak or appease the ancestors and ask them to stop making the child sick. My father tried burning incense several times, but it didn't budge, which raised an eyebrow. After my father was about to give up, the incense got burnt, but not the way it was supposed to. The smoke was too small, and only a small portion of an incense was burning. The child kept getting sick, and the sickness got worse. I was also worried about the child, so I suggested that we go to a traditional healer to consult. Nocifo started throwing fits, saying she doesn't believe in traditional healers, so we can't take her child there. Okay? Things kept getting worse with a child up until my father called the traditional healer at home, and the traditional healer kept saying, the child has to be reunited with his true ancestors, or else he would not get better. We didn't understand at first because we had thought the child was mine. Even though the resemblance was not there, I gave Nocifo the benefit of the doubt for my father's sake. Weeks passed, and some man came home and introduced himself as Brandon, and he was looking for Nocifo. The guy was also from our village, so I didn't understand why Nocifo would just burst if the guy came in peace. The guy narrated his story, and told us that he was there to get his child so he can do better by him. I got confused because I had thought the child was mine since I didn't go back to the doctor for the results. He told us that he knew that the child was sick and needed his true family and to be united with his true ancestors, so he was there to take his child. Nosifo got furious to a point that she then told the guy that she kept the baby away from him because he was poor and he wouldn't be able to take care of the child since he was just a herd boy. I got really mad to the point that I dragged Nosifo outside and told her to go because if I were to see her, I was going to do something that would land me in jail. My father was shocked and disappointed because he had trusted the girl. I didn't believe the girl the audacity to tell the poor guy that she agreed to become my fiancée and the mother of my children was because we were affording and had cows, so the child was not going to suffer. Meaning, she had fooled my father to secure the bag. Gold diggers. You know, in rural areas, if you have livestock, you are considered as a rich man or rich family. So at home we had that, and it came as a shock to my father that the girl he liked for me and was ready to pay for her bridal price was a scammer. What she did was a scam, but I knew it the way she was carrying herself. She was not the saint my father thought she was. So my father, along with my uncles, went back to her home to ask back the damage and dowry money because the girl they had thought was a good girl for me turned out to be a gold digger and ended up putting an innocent child's life in jeopardy just because she wanted to secure the bag. Since I kept my focus on books as I was going to graduate later that year, then I would move to the city and look for a job. After some time I graduated, I wished my mother was there, but then again the universe and God had spoken, but at least father was there, and he was the proudest father. A few months later, I found a job at an insurance company. At that time, I was going to be just an intern, which was a great stepping stone for me because here in South Africa, you stay at home for years looking for a job with your qualifications, and most of the time you need connections to get a job. So I thanked God and my ancestors for opening doors for me a few months after I had graduated. A year later, I was given a permanent position, and I couldn't be happier. I loved my job very much. That time things were going very well on my side. Even at home, father had stopped pestering me about getting a wife. With the stipend I got from being an intern, I managed to get myself a small apartment because traveling from the city to the villages every day was not going to work since it was too far. Time went by and we were going to close for the festive season holidays. So the CEO of the company had hosted an annual year-end closing party for the staff. The previous year I didn't attend it because I had gone home early. One of my brothers had hosted a ceremony. The party went well, it had a lot of vibe, but my eyes were glued to this one lady. The man who was my supervisor when I was an intern came to where I was and introduced her as Faith, his sister. Faith was a very beautiful woman. No scratch that, she was gorgeous, and the goddess. She had a very nice body, always smiling, shy and humble. Well, I thought she was humble. Her brother left us and we started talking. She was smart too. She had brains and big dreams. That's what I loved most about her, a woman with vision and ambition. She was a lady of class. You would see the way she was carrying herself, the things she wore. She respected and loved herself. So that night we chatted. I was having fun with her up until we heard the CEO delivering his appreciation speech. That was when we realized that the time had flown and we had to go our separate ways. I didn't want to look forward and ask for her number. I mean, as much as she had all the qualities I needed and wanted in a woman, but I couldn't bring myself to ask for her number. Well, more especially after what I had done, even though I didn't love her or caught my heart like how Faith did. But she still took me for a fool, which made me not fully trust women. Instead, she asked for mine, saying we should hang out since she didn't have friends and she liked my company. I gave it to her, not knowing that I was setting myself on a trap, but what would have I done? A week later, she texted me and asked where I was. She was bored. Unfortunately, I was home with my family because we had all agreed that, as much as some of us were working in the city, we had to make sure that during December holidays or any holidays, we would spend them home as a family. So I couldn't leave my family and attend to Faith's needs. We then decided to just chat on WhatsApp. From then we started talking, from chatting on WhatsApp to calling each other every morning and every night. We became good friends. When I went back to the city, we started going out, in the name of getting to know each other. She then introduced me to different restaurants that I didn't know about in the city. I mean, the only thing I came to the city for was work. So I didn't know much about any fancy restaurants except McDonald's or KFC and retail stores where I bought groceries. Faith loved trying new things. She was adventurous, whereas I was just a village who was obsessed with books and numbers. She taught me a lot that I didn't know about, introduced me to new things like going out, not to clubs, but visiting different places that had fun activities like hiking, mountain climbing, etc. We became very good friends. I appreciated every time I had spent with her. She taught me a lot that I didn't know about. Our friendship was really amazing. It went on until the day she came to my apartment. She had complained of being bored. She was still living with her parents. She was working as a travel agent at Richards Bay Airport, which explained why she was an adventurous person. Okay, so she came to my apartment, we just chilled, talked about random things, played board games until we decided to just watch something on Showmax. She loved watching reality shows like The Real Housewives. She was a huge fan of the Housewives. She would even tell me the kind of husband she would want to spend her life with. Her dream was to be a housewife and be taken care of by her husband. From watching her reality shows, I opted to change to Netflix. She chose romantic comedy movies, which we didn't even finish because we were busy talking during the movie. She surprised me when she kissed me and told me that she had always wanted to taste my lips. Mind you, I had also been controlling myself every time when I was with her. She was a temptation. So when she kissed me, my heart started having palpitations. I decided to go with the flow. I was happy that I had finally kissed the person I had been fantasizing about. She had soft and welcoming lips. When things were about to escalate, I stopped it before we got too far. Time went by. We became what we call friends with benefits. We would satisfy each other whenever we could up. I don't know if I was the one or she was the one who caught feelings, but I believe I was. I couldn't continue with the no strings attached or friends with benefits thing, so I told her what I felt. And to my surprise, she said that she felt the same way. I had come to terms that not all women were the same. The time I had spent with Faith made me trust her. Not fully, but I did trust her. I was a free-spirited person when I was with her. I felt alive, you know. It's like she was a missing part in my life. She was that missing chapter in a book. Since both of us had developed strong feelings for each other, our relationship got promoted from being friends to friends, with benefits to an actual couple's relationships. Our relationship was a bliss. We supported and loved each other. After 2 months of dating, she told her brother, my supervisor, about us because she didn't want any awkward vibes between us when he found out. Her words, not mine. The brother obviously gave me a tough time, but eventually accepted the relationship. Time passed, and I told my father that I had found a woman and I saw a future with her. Little did I know that I was just fooling myself. My father was happy at the fact that I had finally found myself a woman after the one he had found for me, who turned out to be a gold digger. So during Easter holidays, I had invited Faith to meet my family, which she gladly accepted. I was somehow nervous about how she would view my background. Not my home, but the village, because she was a girl from the suburbs. When she came home, I first introduced her to my brothers and sisters. I loved the fact that as much as she grew up in the suburbs, she knew how to dress as a respectful woman. She respected occasions and made sure to wear respectfully. My brothers didn't trust her. I understood their fears, but they had no choice but to accept her as the woman in my life. I mean, father wanted grandchildren from all his children, right? So I had found the right person for that, but we were going to adopt since the doctor said I was infertile. 6 months passed. I asked my father to gather the uncles because I wanted them to represent me to the Smith family. In our culture, if you want to take a woman, you have to pay and introduce yourself to the family of your woman. Luckily, they were not too much of suburb people, as Faith's mother was a Zulu woman who knew and respected tradition, but she got married to a Smith family, then she moved to the suburbs. My father and the uncles, along with my 2 elder brothers, went to the Smith family to negotiate on my behalf and introduce myself to my in-laws. Faith's father knew a little about the Zulu tradition, so he had asked Faith's uncles from her mother's side of the family to help him during the negotiations. One thing I knew was that I couldn't wait for my wife. She showed me all the qualities of a good wife. I had hoped that she would be different from the one my father had chosen for me. Another couple of months passed. Everything that needed to be done traditionally was sorted. The only thing that had left was the white wedding. I couldn't be happier. You know, I was with the woman who matched all the qualities I needed in a woman. She made me happy and complete as a man. I just don't understand what has gone wrong. I worked very hard at work, took extra shifts so that I could raise enough money for our wedding and our surprise honeymoon. I had planned to take her to Bolito for our honeymoon. I had heard that Bolito was a great holiday place, especially for newlyweds. So I made sure to put every cent I got in savings because I didn't want her to contribute a huge portion of money to our wedding. I mean, I was her man, right? So it was my right and responsibility to provide for her. Time went on very fast to a point that our wedding day was approaching. I was happy. We were happy because the day we had been waiting for had finally come. So when the day came, our wedding was a success. Our families were united and happy, as us. Later that day, we decided to rest. We were going to drive to the surprise location. Everything was a success. We had so much fun on our honeymoon. Few nights after our honeymoon, she wanted us to have a talk about expanding our family and having kids. Mind you, I had forgotten to tell her about my infertility problem, and as much as she was my wife, I was not comfortable to share such a sensitive thing about me with her. I was scared that she would leave me and find a guy who was fertile and would be able to impregnate her. Was I wrong to keep that as a secret? Weeks turned to months, and Faith was really persistent about wanting to have her own family. She kept reminding me every time it was like she was obsessed with having a child. I don't know if she was obsessed with having a child with me, or she just wanted a child that would call her mom. Unfortunately, I couldn't grant her wishes and give her what she wanted. There was this day when she came back from work. Chuckles. I couldn't believe what she did or said. So she came back from work. That day I was not working, I had got a day off. She told me that she had removed her contraceptive preventing implant. Mind you, I didn't even know that she got an implant. So she removed her implant so that it would be easy to fall pregnant, and her doctor had told her that she was very much fertile. So in order for her to fall pregnant fast, she had to take some supplements and check her ovulation dates, which would be a great time to try for a child since her eggs would be active. I couldn't believe my ears. I told her that I didn't want any children, at least not at that time. I didn't give her any reason why I didn't want or was not ready for any children. I know it was wrong and selfish of me, but I couldn't risk losing the only woman I had ever loved, especially not when she had so much eagerness and obsession in having a child. What she told me really shocked me because I was not expecting it. So one day she asked why I was not showing any interest in starting or expanding our own family. I know that time I had a chance to come clean, but I was too ashamed, so I lied and told her that I was just not interested and I wanted to focus on my career. A week later, she then suggested that she was resigning or retiring from her work because she needed to focus on building her family and be a wife, which meant she wanted or expected me to provide for her with everything while she was a housewife. I just don't understand women sometimes, but I shouldn't have been surprised because she was influenced by those reality shows she was watching. And she once told me that her wish was to find a man who would provide for her so she won't have to work, but be a housewife. A year passed and things were no longer the same at my house. My wife had started changing on me. Well, she had started changing when I didn't allow her to quit her job since I was just a financial advisor, which was not a job that paid fortunes. My salary wouldn't even cover half of what she needed as a woman. Another thing, she had started getting impatient about getting pregnant. She would get angry at me whenever I refused her sex. She was not always in the house and had started traveling a lot, saying it was work-related. My conscience couldn't allow me to believe what she had told me. My mind was telling me that she was cheating. All those thoughts were running wild in my head to a point that confronted her and she denied my allegations. I developed trust issues, and what Nosifo had once put me through came back. We had fights about that because she had started going out a lot, saying she was going to her parents' house and she would be sleeping over or going to work. I ignored all that because I had thought that she wouldn't lie about going to her parents' house and work, plus to me, she didn't appear as the person who would just be unfaithful. She was my innocent angel, not knowing that she was actually a devil's agent hiding under a white innocent cloth. Her visiting my parents became a trap song because I had somehow believed it and went with the rhymes and lyrics. So, one weekend I decided to go and see her parents, as my in-laws, of course, thinking maybe I would see my wife. I had missed spending time with her, so I was going to check up on the rents, then come back with her. I didn't marry her to spend more time with her parents, right? When I got there, I didn't see her, so I told her mom that I had come to fetch my wife since I missed her and I wanted to spend my weekend with her. I agree. I had somehow neglected her because she had changed to an obsessed person who wanted a child so bad. And ever since, I didn't allow her to be a housewife. She was going out a lot. So, her mother told me that she had last seen her 2 months ago. That raised an eyebrow because whenever she was leaving, she would say she was going to her parents' house, and that was happening every weekend. I asked her about her lies when she came back, and the things she said to me were not what I had expected from her. She told me in the face that I was no longer satisfying her, so she got satisfaction outside our marriage. Which was not the worst thing she said, because her last words were that she had been tolerating me for too long. We had been trying for over a year for a baby, but she was not falling pregnant. She even told me that I was less of a man and she wanted a divorce. I got furious and I ended up slapping her. Luckily, we didn't get married under community property, but I tried fighting for her, but her mind was made up and she even threatened to open a restraining order for me. I love this woman too much. I still had plans for our marriage, very big plans, but she decided to just throw herself in someone else's bed just because she was not getting pregnant, and I was no longer satisfying her. I won't lie, even today when I think about her, I become enraged. She moved out of our marital home. My father had given us land as our wedding gift to build my house, where I would be staying with my wife and kids, so I did as he had said. She was a gone girl. Father called a meeting between two families, mine and Faith's, to try and solve the issue that we were facing. Faith didn't show up at that meeting, so the two families looked at me as a man who couldn't control his house and was controlled by a woman. 2 weeks later, I saw her with a man in some restaurant. They were cozy, and even a small child would see that those people were in a relationship. So I granted her a divorce. At least I didn't lose anything to her. I couldn't fight for something that was not going anywhere. The ship had sunk, so it was time to move on and restart my life. Since then, I vowed to never fall in love again. The person I had thought had the qualities of a good woman showed me that no woman is perfect. They are all evil and manipulative. She made me believe that she loved me, but she chose someone else over me just because she couldn't get pregnant. So see that God works in mysterious ways. A year and a couple of months later, she came back home. She was not alone, but with a small child. The thing she said was, she came to introduce me to my child. She had fallen pregnant before she got into a relationship with the man I once saw her with, and worse things happened. She found out that the man was married and was not willing to leave his wife for her. I just told her that she should go back to that man and introduce the baby to him because the baby looked nothing like me or any of my family members. When she refused to go, I called her parents and brother and asked them to come and fetch her. Then I told her that there was no way the baby was mine because I was infertile. Then I showed her the papers from the doctor. She couldn't believe it, so I asked her to never contact me again or set foot in my house because I would murder her if I ever see her again. That day I decided to be calm and not do the unthinkable to her. Later on, her parents and brother came and fetched her. I was so disappointed and angry at myself for investing all my love to someone who would do the same thing the person I didn't even love once did to me. Fear woman, how do you think I should have dealt with the situation? I need some advice.